Bringing it back to the Arkansas football schedule, Georgia Week 1 in Fayetteville. We've had a lot of conversation predicated around this particular subject this morning. Any insight that you have as far as Sam Pittman and these former coaches that were in Athens to what the benefits that could be playing Georgia Week 1?
Well, Sam actually talked about that on our Zoom call with him prior to yesterday. In that, he knows the players very well, and he kind of knows some of the tendencies. But there'll be new schemes, and it's subtle things, I think. But if there's a particular guy on defense, a tackle or something that isn't quite up to par, maybe you can attack him. The thing is, though, Georgia's just been recruiting at such a high level that really the athletes across the board are going to be solid. And, they do have a kind of a quarterback battle looming, and so they may be a little unsettled there. And so I would say in this instance, it's better to get them early than late. They're going to be a quality opponent, and unfortunately for Arkansas, they're only going to be able to put 17,000 or so fans in the stands. But I think, when people see Sam Pittman, when they hear the things that the players are saying and the assistant coaches are saying, there's a renewed sense of optimism that Sam Pittman is going to have this team heading in the right direction. This year, I think we're all realists in that we don't suspect Arkansas will be in contention this year. But you have a really good camp. You're fresh. You're healthy. You go into this Georgia game. Can they put a scare into the Bulldogs? Maybe so. They can put some schemes enough together to score points and maybe cause Georgia to, have to make some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball, maybe. But it'll be a fun opener for a lot of different reasons.
So, Tom, we were discussing yesterday, Clay, Tommy, and I, the idea of front-loading the schedule, get the really good teams out early. Well, it's kind of balanced out a little bit if you look at who you play at the beginning and who you play at the end. As far as the benefit for Arkansas in this football schedule, what would you give, and I know it's difficult with 6 ranked teams, what would you give it in terms of how you like the schedule in favor of Arkansas playing it this season?
Yeah. Well, there was really no way to sort it out where, you're going to have an easy part or a tough part. I mean, there's hard opponents on the road and at home and in the first half and in the part after their open date. So there's no getting around that. But I do think that you play Georgia at home and then you go on the road to Mississippi State, new coach, and by the way, an understated storyline of the last couple of years is how the Mississippi State team just manhandled Arkansas the last 2 years. That offense, they had it going with you're going to have to kick my Yankee ass out of here offense. They did a great job. So I'm sure Leach, the new system, they're still going to be getting used to that. So that's week 2 on the road. And then you go and play Auburn, again, underdogs for the Razorbacks. Auburn's probably thinking challenging for the SEC West. Well, they are. And then home against Ole Miss. So there's two games in that front 4 that are the teams we've talked about. If Arkansas is going to have a breakthrough, that's the kind of team they'll have to beat this year. And so 2 out of the first 4 before the open date are games that I think are manageable, that I think are, if the Razorbacks stay healthy, if they're make improvements at quarterback like we think, and they show a little bit more speed across the board, they'll have a chance in those games. Yeah. And then open date, and then A&M, and on to the rest of the schedule. But I do think that the first 4 presents a couple of opportunities to win games.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Mississippi State game the second week. Always a tough road environment to go into. The cowbells are loud, but you mentioned the diminished capacities. Arkansas are going to be somewhere around 17,000. I'm not exactly sure what will be there at Davis Wade that day, but probably a smaller number than 17 of the percentages are the same across the league. These road environments, I think that's going to help some road teams this year. I mean, some places that are normally loud, the bands are loud, the cowbells in Starkville are loud. It's going to be a lot different this year. That should help road teams, I would think. At least conventional thinking says it would.
Yeah, it would help you in your communication, getting signals into the field and all that kind of thing. And a public service announcement for the rest of the league, I would really, really wish the SEC would eliminate those cowbells. It is a clear violation of the policy, and it is a clear artificial noisemaker. And just because they were the little guys who got whipped up on all the time over the years is the reason I think they were allowed to have the cowbells, and I wish they'd go away.
Yeah. Get LSU and Alabama, 2 of your last 3 if everything stays as planned. Missouri sandwiched in between. What do you think about the close of the season?
Yeah, well, it's really tough. I mean, you're going to have 2 teams that people think are going to be in the running, particularly Alabama. I just think LSU's got too much personnel loss to overcome. I mean, I still think they're going to be salty. But Joe Burrow was a transformational quarterback, and all that talent around him, they use that. And they were fun to watch. They were explosive, and, the team of a lifetime for LSU. So maybe they'll be in contention. But the Razorbacks will have them at home, and we'll just see what the year yields to that point. But I just think Arkansas is going to be more competitive. And in recent years, some of these games against LSU and A&M, some of the top dogs have been pretty doggone close.
Talking with Tom.
And then Alabama's Alabama. And then in the Missouri game, they'll have a chance in that game.
Bama's got the Iron Bowl the week before, too.
Yeah, and LSU plays Bama. That was what I was going to divulge into, Tom. When you look at LSU playing Alabama the week before they play Arkansas, and Auburn playing the Crimson Tide the week before they play the Razorbacks, are we grasping at straws at this point when that could potentially help Arkansas sneak up on one? And especially because Bama is going to be on their way to the SEC championship at that point. Is that grasping at straws when we look at that potential?
Well, what it is it's reality, because it's just hard for a team to be up week after week. This is a Danny Sheridan philosophy that you only get up like four times a year for, real maximum effort. I don't know if I totally buy into it, but I do know that doing that week after week is really hard. So it's going to be reality that after teams play these huge games and then they face the Razorbacks, it's a natural inclination for their players to think, well, we've got this one. So that is advantage Arkansas. Also, there is a true talent gap between the teams right now, and you have to do stuff like play turnover free. Have a special teams play go in your favor. Have some weird deflection and catch it, and you run it in for a touchdown. Things like that. But it's happened before, and I do think this Arkansas team is going to be more capable of kind of creating their own luck than the last couple of years. So. I've said on here before, I think they'd get 3 if they went to an all-SEC schedule. It's doable. It's going to be tough, but I'm going to stick with my 3 for right now. And as I see camp develop and, maybe injuries from other teams and things like that, I might adjust that for some. But for right now, I'm gonna stick with my 3.
So we've talked a lot to this point about Arkansas' schedule, Tom, but when you look at the SEC schedule overall, I was listening to Greg McElroy, Roman Harper, and Dari Noka discuss this on SEC Now last night. What game in particular are you most excited about this upcoming SEC slate?
I heard those guys talking in the background of my TV. I was writing about the practice and writing about the schedule. Last night was crazy, y'all. We've had all these slow days, but yesterday was action-packed, including Isaiah Joe's decision and the capacity in the stadium story and all that kind of stuff. To me, the game I'm most excited about is the ones that are going to make the difference in the top of standings. And so the traditionals, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, LSU, very exciting games. I would like to think that the Razorbacks are going to be a harder out this year for teams, and they get into some kind of barn burner in the fourth quarter. It may be week 2 against Mississippi State. That might turn into a super exciting game. So from my own perspective, the games that I expect to see, that kind of game.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the upper echelon teams, people think, they could give them a good tussle. That's what I'd like to believe. And
let's don't forget Bama plays Georgia, and it's now week 4, which will be October 17th. So that's probably as big a game as anywhere on the grid this year.
Some great crossover games like that one with a ton of interest. It was going to be, I think, week 2. Got wiped out, but that's going to be a great one. Florida plays A&M. I'm not sure what week that one is. but that's a road game, and hasn't happened in a long time. Florida playing at A&M, I think 2012.
Yep.
So that'll be fun too.
Week 3 this year. So, yeah. So you mentioned practice yesterday. I have a hard time. I'm glad they're on the field, but until they start popping pads and having full scale, I have a hard time getting just over the top excited about what's going on. But Rakeem Boyd and some of the coaches reacted to last night via Zoom. What were some of your takeaways from day one officially of getting ready for a presumed 2020 season?
Right, and I'm kind of with you, Tommy. It's just until they suit it up on this 26th and Georgia's across the field and all that, it's going to be hard to think this is going to happen. But I do admire the SEC's taken a lot of flack, but I do admire their approach, which was don't give up on something until the evidence is clear, and so I do admire that. My takeaway, I wrote it in the lead of my story, was this. Sam Pittman wants to set the tempo of this team. We want to be a tough, hard-nosed, blue-collar team. We're going to go out there and work, and I think we have the guys who want to do that. And so it was running between drills and all that, just kind of setting the example. You don't slouch on the field and that kind of thing. And he has inserted some positivity into the ranks. They believe in him. They believe in who he is and what he believes. And, that can take you a long way. Sometimes if your talent deficit is a little bit short of another team, but your team believes in you and your schemes, sometimes you find a way to make things happen. And he has them believing, and it's a great start for Pittman and his group.
Yeah, when you think about the phrase work hard beats talent, when talent doesn't work hard, when you look across the board at the rosters in the SEC, it's very hard to find a roster that is like, and I say this like it's comparable to Arkansas. Maybe you could say some of the lesser ones, but Tom, it's going to be, it's not about the talent that they have on campus this year. As you mentioned, it's going to come down to which guy in that locker room wants it more than the guys in the SEC across the board. That's what it comes down to, is just working harder than every other opponent they're going to face this season.
Absolutely. They've got to get more players on both sides of the line in the trenches, and Sam Pittman knows that. And he's going to recruit to that. I mean, their recruiting on the O-line has already picked up. When he was here, they were getting guys like Kirkland and Dan Skipper and Frank Ragnow, guys from out of state, and then they got the local guys too. And I think that's going to improve. And when you have that, you can protect your quarterback longer. Your running game can be more productive. It all fits hand in glove. Yeah. And they've got a quarterback who's going to be super motivated to show that, he shouldn't have lost his starting job when he got hurt at Florida. But that's the case. Felipe Franks has got 1 year to show he still got it, and they love his arm. And, if the offense can work, they can give people some trouble. And if they outwork people, they can win the turnover battles, be a better, more explosive special teams outfit. They'll have a chance in some of these games. We've seen teams turn it around quickly before. You can't do it all season long, probably, in terms of being competitive with these heavyweights week in and week out. But I think they're going to have the right attitude, and I just hope we get to see 10 football games out of them.
Tom, you brought up the news earlier of Isaiah Joe electing to go back and re-enter his name to the NBA draft, can no longer come back to Arkansas. The busyness that you had, that Bob had, and everyone that covers Arkansas had yesterday was pretty extreme based on everything that was being released. Just kind of your takeaways from Isaiah deciding that it was the NBA, it was best for his career.
Yeah, not a super shocker. When the announcement first came out, Eric Musselman thought, there was a time in this process we felt for sure he was gone. And I think that was probably Isaiah and his dad's intention was, to probably do that. Circumstances led to him saying he would come back, and then now he's concerned about the viability of having a full basketball season. And you don't want to get into the uncertainty of that. So I get it. I know the Razorbacks sure could have used a sharpshooter like him and a guy who, helped the team. Yeah. Took charges, was going to get bigger, stronger, and hopefully his three-point shot would have pumped up a little bit. But, it's reality. I think they're still going to have a pretty deep roster. Still think they're going to have good three-point shooters. You just hate that the in-state kid's gone, but I wish him the best.
How much does it change your expectations for the next basketball season whenever that gets underway?
Yeah, just marginally. I mean, you cannot underemphasize the value of a great veteran three-point shooter who's been through the league twice, like Isaiah Joe. So I don't know if one win difference. Who's to say? But it's going to give other guys chances, and they recruited very well, and things are pointing in the right direction for that program for sure. And we'll see where that takes them.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, percentage chance the college basketball season started on time and went unaffected seems very low, maybe even like 0% chance at this point.
Yeah, and you hate to say that because they're about to start playing football. So we think they're about to start playing football. But, you're probably right. I participated in a thing that John Clay did, of the Lexington Herald leader, when this first hit. And the three options were, is it going to be a full season played on time, a season that has a short delay, or it's changed in some way, or no football? And I was the optimist. I went for full season that starts on time. That's obviously wrong now. But maybe the guys who picked option 2, most of the season altered a little bit, are going to be on target, and I hope they are.
Yeah, I think everyone listening feels that exact same way. Tom Murphy of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Tom, we always appreciate it, man, and we will talk to you on Thursday, buddy.
Don't you know it? We look forward to it.
Thank you, Tom.
I appreciate it. And congrats on your Braves win last night. Good for Tom to wake up some good news.